The morning of my wedding should have been the happiest day of my life, but instead, I found myself staring at 3 empty seats in the front row. The ones meant for my mom, my dad, and my brother. They didn't just miss my ceremony, they vanished. No call, no text, not even an excuse. Just silence so loud it filled the whole room. 2 years later, I was signing the papers for a $175,000 Mercedes, the kind of car people notice, especially the ones who once ignored you. That same day, my phone rang for the first time in 5 years. It was my mother. Funny, isn't it? Family has a way of remembering you the moment success shows up in your driveway. I remember standing alone in the bridal suite at Willamette Valley Vineyard, staring at the stranger in the mirror, a woman dressed in white, holding herself together with mascara and hope. The gown fit perfectly, every lace detail a small rebellion against being forgotten. My makeup artist had outdone herself, my eyes looked bright, my lips soft and steady, even as my heart cracked quietly beneath the surface. On the vanity, a bouquet of white roses waited, patient and pure. I checked my phone again, 14th time in 20 minutes. Still nothing. Not from Mom. Not from Dad. Not even from my brother, Daniel. Then came the soft knock. Clara, my wedding planner, peeked in with a careful smile that didn't reach her eyes. "It's time, Emily. Ready?" My gaze drifted toward the window overlooking the ceremony. 90 guests sat beneath the open sky, the string quartet playing something sweet and sad. But all I could see were those 3 empty chairs, silent, hollow, accusing. "They're not coming, are they?" I whispered. Clara hesitated, her smile faltering. "There's still time," she said softly, though we both knew the truth. I straightened, smoothed my dress, swallowed hard. "Let's do this," I said, and walked into the day my family chose to forget me. When the doors opened, 90 heads turned. I walked alone down the aisle, feeling the sympathy in every gaze, soft smiles, whispered pity. It pressed against me like humidity, heavy and uncomfortable. At the altar, Ryan waited, eyes locked on mine. The calm, certain love shining from him almost drowned out the echo of my mother's voice from 3 days before. "We'll try, sweetheart. Daniel's firm has a big event that weekend." Her tone had been light, casual, as if she were turning down coffee, not missing her only daughter's wedding. "I can pay for the flights," I had begged. "The hotel, everything, please, Mom." From the background came my father's voice, "Tell her we're busy." Now, as I moved forward, I whispered to myself, "In. Out. Keep walking. Do not cry." When I reached Ryan, he took my hands. His palms were warm, real, steady. "I'm here," he murmured for only me to hear. "We're enough." For a heartbeat, I was 8 years old again, standing in our living room while Mom and Dad positioned Daniel's debate trophy on the mantel. They adjusted it like curators arranging fine art. My art contest certificate sat forgotten in a kitchen drawer. I still remembered showing it to them, pride spilling over. Mom had said, "That's nice, honey," without looking away from dinner. Dad had patted my head absently and said, "Your brother needs more support, he's going places. You understand, don't you, Emily?" I had tried harder after that. Honor roll plaques, scholarships, promotions, each one a flare I sent into the sky, hoping they would finally see me. Most were met with distracted nods or silence. Back in the vineyard garden, the ceremony flowed on. My voice steadied as I read my vows. "I choose a future where we see each other clearly," I told Ryan, and only he understood the layers beneath those words. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, his mother wrapped me in a hug that felt like sunlight. "You're part of us now, dear." The tightness in my chest loosened a little. Later, the photographer caught Ryan spinning me beneath twinkling lights, laughter circling around us. For moments, I forgot the family-shaped hole in my day. At the reception, my college roommate Lily raised her glass. "To finding the family who deserves you." Her voice was fierce, loving. The crowd murmured in agreement. Her words landed deep. I had spent my whole life chasing people who were never looking my way. When the music softened, I slipped away and checked my phone one last time. Still nothing, no call, no text, no tiny acknowledgement. Ryan found me there. "They missed something beautiful today," he said, slipping an arm around my waist. I looked up at him, the man who had never once made me fight for attention. "Their choice," I said, feeling lighter than I had in years. "Not my burden." For the first time, I almost believed it. 2 years later, I leaned back in my ergonomic chair, staring at the headline on my screen: "Acquisition of Crescent Motion Studio finalized at $21 million. 5 years of building, 2 years of negotiating, and now it was done." My office door burst open as my team poured in with champagne. "To Emily," shouted Sophie, my creative director. The woman who built something out of nothing, while some people weren't even watching. We clinked glasses and laughed. These 12 people had shown up for me in every way my own family hadn't. My phone buzzed. An Instagram notification: Daniel's post about his twin daughter's private school fundraiser. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. There they were, Mom and Dad beside Daniel and Grace, all smiling, the caption reading: "Family tradition continues, third generation at Westridge Academy." Dad's arm rested around Daniel's shoulders, Mom beamed at her granddaughters. Swipe. Hawaii vacation. Swipe. Holiday gathering I hadn't been invited to. Swipe. Dad's retirement party. Each picture perfect, minus one daughter. The pictures told their own story. The Maui rental, $5,000 a week. Westridge tuition, $30,000 per child per year. Daniel's home, worth at least $2 million. All of it funded, according to cousins' gossip, by my parents' help. My success, a $21 million acquisition, hadn't earned so much as a text. "Emily?" Sophie touched my arm. "We lost you for a minute." I locked my phone. "Just checking messages." Where were we? While everyone celebrated, I did quiet math in my head. Daniel's firm was decent but nowhere near that rich. My parents were draining their retirement to keep his image afloat. After the party, I scrolled through my parents' social pages. Dozens of posts about Daniel's triumphs, the twins' milestones, family gatherings. My presents? One generic "Happy Birthday, Emily" from last year, no picture attached. I closed my laptop and made a choice. The next morning, I called my financial advisor. "I want to complete the purchase of the Mercedes Taycan Metallic Gray today." 3 hours later, I was signing the paperwork for a $175,000 car. Extravagant? Sure. But it was mine, not for approval, just proof that I never needed theirs. Back home, I snapped one photo, the car gleaming in my driveway under the afternoon sun, and posted it with the caption: "Dreams realized." 3 days of silence. Then, Wednesday afternoon, my phone lit up with a name I hadn't seen in 5 years. Mom calling. My stomach clenched as I answered. "Hello? Emily." Mom's voice carried that familiar mix of command and fake urgency she used when something wasn't going her way. "We need to talk." "Family meeting tomorrow." "Family meeting?" I echoed. The words felt unreal. After 5 years of silence, now she wanted a meeting? "This is important," she said quickly. I heard Dad in the background: "Tell her it's important." As if I couldn't hear every word. "What's important?" I asked. My wedding wasn't. My company wasn't. So what matters now? Mom hesitated. "It's complicated. Financial issues. We need to discuss them as a family." And there it was. They had seen the car. They had probably read about the acquisition. Suddenly, I was family again. "Tomorrow at 2, I said flatly and hung up. The next morning, I slid into the driver's seat of my new Mercedes. The leather felt cool against my back. The drive to my childhood home took about 40 minutes, enough time to remember birthdays they'd skipped, holidays they'd celebrated without me, every silence that had said, "You don't matter." Their colonial house looked smaller than I remembered, but the ache it caused was just as big. My sleek gray Mercedes gleamed in the circular driveway like it didn't belong there. Maybe neither did I. I sat for a moment, gripping the steering wheel, breathing slow. The last time I'd stood on that porch was 6 years ago to announce my engagement. Dad had kept glancing at his watch. Mom had smiled politely, already halfway out of the conversation. My phone buzzed. A text from Ryan, "Remember who you are. Call if you need extraction." It made me smile. Another ping, an email from Rachel Meyer, the investor who believed in crescent motion before anyone else did. "Your worth isn't measured by those who couldn't see it." Then a reminder from my assistant, "Don't let them take too much time. You have a production review at 4. I exhaled. Boundaries aren't punishments, they're protection, my therapist had said last week. Time to live that truth. Before I could knock, the front door opened. Mom and Dad stood there, expressions flickering from annoyance to surprise as they spotted the Mercedes behind me. Dad's first words, "You've done well for yourself." Not hello. Not "I've missed you." Just an appraisal. "Yes," I said simply. No hugs. No warmth. They led me to the dining room, where Daniel and his wife Grace were already seated, wearing expressions that tried for concern but landed on calculation. "Emily." Daniel nodded like we'd spoken last week instead of 5 years ago. "Let's get straight to business," Dad said, pulling a stack of folders onto the table. I stayed standing, my purse still over my shoulder. "Before business, I'd like to know why I suddenly matter again after years of not existing to you." Mom and Dad exchanged a look. Daniel shifted. "We can discuss that later," Mom said, her voice sliding into that dismissive tone she'd used my whole life. "There are more pressing matters." "I'm not in a rush," I said quietly. "And I'm not interested in being family only when it's convenient." For the first time, I saw uncertainty cross my father's face. They needed me now, and that realization steadied me. The dining room felt smaller than I remembered. Dad, Thomas, sat at the head like a CEO in crisis. Mom, Margaret, perched beside him, posture perfect. Across from me, Daniel slouched in his chair, cuffs wrinkled. Grace had a photo album open on her lap. "It's foreclosure," Dad said finally, voice tight. "Daniel's mortgage is 3 months behind. The twins' tuition hasn't been paid this semester." Silence filled the room. 2 years of no contact, and this was why they called. "You need to help your brother." Dad slid a document across the polished table, loan paperwork already filled in. "Think about your nieces," Mom added, her tone quivering just enough to sound rehearsed. "They're just children." Daniel leaned forward. "We're family. When one of us succeeds, we help the others." Grace pushed the album toward me. Photos of the twins, birthdays, school plays, smiling faces I hardly knew. "They ask about Aunt Emily all the time," she said softly. Dad cleared his throat. "We've done all we can. Our retirement is strained. We've been supporting them. The unspoken message, you owe us." I closed the album gently. "Where were you at my wedding?" Daniel blinked. "What?" "My wedding. 2 years ago. Where were you?" Mom fluttered a hand to her throat. "We were busy. Daniel's firm had that event." "It wasn't convenient," Dad added, as though that settled it. I nodded slowly. "Yet here you are because you saw the Mercedes on Instagram. You only called because you saw the car." Daniel's face reddened. "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" I sat down at last, spine straight. "I built everything on my own, every scholarship, every client, every late night. Where were any of you then?" Dad's eyes narrowed. "What does that have to do with now?" "Everything." I folded my hands on the table, mirroring his businesslike pose. "I'm listening. Tell me why I should write you a check." Daniel slammed his hand down. You always had to prove something, showing off how special you were. Some of us just wanted normal lives. Dad placed a hand on his shoulder. Your brother had more potential. We had to nurture that. You were always so independent. Mom's voice softened. We're still your parents, despite everything. You were parents in title only, I said, my voice even. You missed my graduation, my scholarship ceremony, my company launch, my wedding. I tapped the table with each word. You missed my life. And now you want to share in what that life built. Emily, Dad began. You didn't build this, I said firmly. And you don't get to claim it. My phone vibrated in my purse. I glanced down. A message from Ryan, you okay? Meeting running long. Just seeing his name steadied me. I remembered what Rachel Meyer once told me during the hardest stage of building my company, you don't need approval from anyone who can't see your light. I looked back at the table, at my family who had never once seen that light. Dad pushed the loan papers toward me again. We're only asking for what's reasonable. Family helps family. The interest rate is fair, Mom added, as if this were some generous business offer. Daniel leaned back, confidence returning. Blood's thicker than water, Em. I stood slowly, letting the silence stretch. All their eyes followed me as I reached into my briefcase and set it on the table. I've made a different decision, I said quietly. Dad leaned forward. Mom twisted her napkin in her lap. Daniel's jaw tightened. Instead of pulling out a checkbook, I slid one document across the table. This is the announcement for the Rivera Media Scholarship Foundation, $16 million dedicated to giving young women a chance to build careers in digital media. I smoothed the paper with my hand. The press release goes out tomorrow morning. Daniel's mouth fell open. 16 million? It's named after my high school teacher, Miss Rivera, the woman who came to my art shows when my own family was too busy. The money's locked into a legal trust, I continued. Board approved last week. The air went still. I'm helping girls who never got the applause I didn't get, I said, sliding the folder back into my briefcase. That's what family means to me. Daniel's face twisted with anger. You're wasting it on strangers. On nobodies who deserve better than what I got, I interrupted. My voice was calm, even. Girls who just need someone to believe in them. My parents sat frozen, staring at the papers that meant they'd never touch that money. I picked up my phone and turned the screen toward them. A recording app glowed red, showing the active timer. I've documented every message and every word from today, I said quietly. Every guilt trip, every threat, every demand, just in case anyone decides to get creative with legal claims against the foundation. I turned toward the door. Behind me, Daniel's chair scraped back. You can't just leave, he shouted. We need that money. I paused at the threshold without turning around. No, Daniel. What you needed was to show up, at my graduation, at my company launch, at my wedding. That chance is gone. The door clicked shut behind me, soft but final. Outside, I slid into my Mercedes, the engine humming beneath my hands like a heartbeat. The farther I drove, the lighter I felt. I pressed the call button on the dashboard. Ryan picked up almost immediately. It's done, I said. They showed exactly who they are. How bad was it? His voice was gentle but firm. Exactly what we expected, I said with a small laugh that wasn't quite humor. Daniel lost it when I told them about the foundation. Dad tried to act reasonable, and Mom cried about family duty. You okay? Ryan asked. I glanced in the rearview mirror. My reflection looked calm, steady, no tears, no shame. I'm better than okay, I said softly. For the first time, I saw them clearly, and stopped hoping they'd be different. I'm proud of you, Ryan said. Don't forget, Foundation Board meeting at 9 tomorrow. Everything's ready for the press release. Perfect, I said. The timing couldn't be better. The plan had been deliberate, finalize the foundation legally before this confrontation, announce it before they could twist the story. No emotional loopholes, just structure they couldn't touch. The Rivera Media Scholarship would be my legacy, not family drama. That night, the first message came at 11:47. By midnight, my phone buzzed nonstop. Family emergency, we need to talk, don't do this. I placed it face down on the nightstand and turned off the light. Beside me, Ryan's steady breathing anchored me. I didn't need to read their words to know what they said. Morning brought 6 voicemails from Mom. Each one shifted tone, from tearful pleas about family unity to sharp accusations of betrayal, and finally to threats about what people would think if a daughter abandoned her parents in their time of need. I looked at my reflection while applying mascara. You've dealt with worse, I told myself. Ryan handed me coffee in my favorite mug. Daniel's calling everyone he can, he said, scrolling through his phone. Your dad even tried reaching out to my uncle. Predictable, I said, taking a sip. The bitterness steadied me. They were moving fast, but not smart. The Foundation's first board meeting the next morning felt like stepping into sunlight after a long storm. 12 brilliant women sat around the table, each of them invested in the same dream, helping young women step into the creative world without apology. The meeting flowed smoothly. We approved the press release, finalized launch plans, and voted on the first scholarship timeline. For the first time in a long time, every face around me looked proud, not expectant. They saw me for what I'd built, not what they could take. Halfway through reviewing venue proposals, my receptionist's voice broke through the intercom. Miss Rivers, your family is here, she whispered. They're making a scene. Through the glass wall, I saw them, Mom's hands waving, Dad's jaw tight, Daniel red-faced beside Grace. Security was already moving toward them. Please have security escort them out, I said, calm and firm. No confrontation. My staff froze for a beat, then nodded. I watched through the glass as my mother's voice rose, echoing across the lobby. My daughter is abandoning her family. Her pearls swung with each angry gesture. Daniel's arms were crossed, that same pouty red flush he used to get when things didn't go his way. I straightened my papers, forcing my voice steady. It's being handled, I told my team. Let's keep working. Security led them to the elevators, my mother still arguing. Daniel called over his shoulder, this isn't over. You can't just ignore family obligations. I didn't flinch. That evening, I drafted a single email to all 3 of them. I have documented your harassment at my workplace. Any further contact here will result in a formal complaint. For future family matters, direct all communication through my attorney. His contact information is attached. Emily. I hit send. My hand shook, not from fear, but relief. 2 days later, I sat in Dr. Howard's softly lit office, the faint smell of jasmine tea calming my nerves. She read the email I'd printed out. Direct and clear, she said. How did it feel to send it? Necessary, I replied. Not satisfying, just right. She nodded. That's what boundaries are. They aren't revenge, they're protection. I traced the pattern on her armchair. They're showing who they've always been, aren't they? People don't change under pressure, she said. They just reveal themselves. Her words landed heavy but true. I realized that all those years of chasing their approval had been a one-sided effort. They didn't want to love me, they wanted to use me. It wasn't my job to earn their love, I murmured. It was their job to give it freely. Dr. Howard smiled gently. Exactly. The next morning, Daniel made his move. The Portland Chronicle published a small article, Family Dispute Over Money Turns Ugly. But the reporter, smarter than my brother anticipated, asked questions Daniel hadn't prepared for, like why my family had skipped my wedding. The story painted a very different picture than Daniel expected, absent parents suddenly interested after a big payout. Mom's frantic social media posts only fueled the fire. She accused me of betrayal, but comments poured in supporting me. Old classmates, business peers, even distant cousins reached out privately. "We always wondered why your parents never mentioned your success," one cousin wrote. "Now it makes sense. Dad tried calling my investors, but none of them entertained his drama. They'd seen my leadership for years." Instead, the community rallied behind the Scholarship Foundation. Applications flooded in even before the official launch date. The Portland Business Journal reached out next. They wanted an interview, not about the family chaos, but about the foundation itself. I agreed, with clear boundaries, no personal gossip, only purpose. When journalist Delia Warren arrived, she was warm but curious. $16 million is a huge commitment, she said, flipping through the prospectus. What inspired this level of generosity? I smiled. I had a teacher who believed in me when others didn't. Miss Rivera noticed my potential when my own family couldn't. I want other girls to experience that same belief. Delia nodded, scribbling notes. You've built quite a career. Crescent Motion's acquisition was one of the biggest local success stories last year. Is your family proud? The question hung in the air. I could have dodged it. Instead, I met her gaze. My success was built without family support. They weren't there at my wedding, my graduation, or when I sold my company. Her pen paused. That context explains a lot, she said softly. A week later, the article ran with the headline, "Self-Made Innovator." The contrast was obvious, my work lifting others while my family's entitlement dragged them down. When news broke that Daniel's house had entered foreclosure, I didn't have to say a word. People connected the dots on their own. Ryan tightened our home security and filtered calls. My team managed the flood of messages, shielding me so I could focus on foundation work. Rachel Meyer issued a statement of support. Emily Rivers is building something that will outlast any headline. Her mission is generosity, not retaliation. Lily and my college friends surrounded us with warmth. Our calendar filled with dinners, laughter, and simple joy. Dr. Howard reminded me weekly, "You can replace family with community, you're living proof." And she was right. For the first time in my life, I wasn't alone, I was surrounded by people who chose to be here. 2 weeks later, I stood behind a podium beneath golden lights, accepting the Business Leadership Award from the Women in Media Alliance. Looking out over the crowd, I saw real joy, faces that celebrated me for who I was, not for what I could provide. Ryan sat in the front row, smiling wide, pride shining in his eyes. For a moment, I thought about all the ceremonies my parents had missed, graduation, awards, my own wedding, and realized none of that pain mattered here. There were no empty chairs tonight. When the applause quieted, I spoke from my heart. For years, I measured my worth by the approval I could never earn, I said. But now, I measure it by what we build together. The room erupted again, the applause rolling over me like sunlight. For the first time, recognition didn't feel hollow, it felt deserved. After the event, Ryan took my hand. "You did it," he said simply. "No," I replied with a smile. "We did." Our life grew full, not of perfection, but of peace. Naomi's retirement party at the foundation brought together my business team, our friends, and the women whose mentorship had changed my life. We started new traditions. Small dinners, game nights, quiet holidays. No walking on eggshells, no pretending. Just laughter that filled the room instead of judgment that drained it. The foundation thrived. Within 6 months, we had hundreds of scholarship applicants. I spent evenings reading essays from young women who reminded me of myself, girls with big dreams and small chances. Our next project, the Emergency Fund for Students Facing Financial Hardship, ensured no one had to quit school because life got too hard. I understood those struggles because I'd lived them, working late nights, patching together belief from thin air. Meanwhile, my family's downfall became public record. Mom and Dad's retirement plans were gone. Daniel's wife, Grace, lost her standing in her social circles. Their house went on the market. People talked, but not cruelly. They saw the truth for themselves. the family who ignored, then begged. The daughter who built instead of blamed. The local paper ran a follow-up feature titled Turning Pain into Purpose, highlighting the scholarship's success stories. I didn't ask for that attention, but it came anyway. For the first time, being seen didn't scare me. One morning, my assistant Janine entered my office with 3 folders. "The committee's chosen the finalists," she said, setting them down carefully. "They'd like your thoughts by Friday." I opened the first portfolio, a short film by a 17-year-old named Maya Harrison. Her application video stopped me cold. Maya's story felt eerily familiar, a creative girl in a quiet town, dismissed by her family, using art to make sense of being invisible. Her voice in the video was steady but tired, like she'd already learned disappointment too young. "I found my voice through filmmaking when no one wanted to listen," she said. I watched it twice. That night, I told Ryan, "She reminds me of me. Determined, talented, quiet. Overlooked." He nodded. "Maybe that's exactly who you're meant to help." I smiled softly. "Maybe it is." Thanksgiving was a week away when the messages started piling up again. Aunt Meredith left yet another voicemail, "Everyone misses you, Emily." The subject line of my mother's latest email read, "Family needs to be together." I didn't reply. Then my cousin Drew texted, "Can't you just talk to them?" I don't get the rift. Of course he didn't. He hadn't seen the empty seats at my wedding. He hadn't lived through 20 years of being invisible. A handwritten letter arrived the next day. The cursive was unmistakably my mother's. "We always believed in you," it said. I read it once, then tossed it into the fireplace. The edges curled and blackened, just like the lies it held. When Dad called my office directly, my assistant followed the standing rule, unavailable. Permanently. Then came the twins, Daniel's daughters. They showed up at the foundation with handmade cards that said, "We miss you, Aunt Emily." The handwriting wasn't theirs. "They're using every emotional lever they can," Ryan said that night, looking over the cards. "They're desperate." I flipped through the week's collection of apologies. "But they still haven't actually said sorry," I murmured. The next call came from the family's attorney. "There are moral obligations to consider," he said, his voice smooth and distant. "Family carries responsibilities." I almost laughed. The implication was clear. I was the villain now, the ungrateful daughter who wouldn't bail out her family. Pastor Wilson, from the church I'd stopped attending years ago, left a voicemail, "Your parents are deeply concerned. Perhaps we can meet to discuss reconciliation." Even 2 childhood friends reached out. "Your parents seem heartbroken," one said. "The holidays are for forgiveness," said the other. And then came Grace's email, with photos of the twins in their Halloween costumes. "The girls ask about you all the time," she wrote. I closed the message without answering. "They're trying to shift the guilt onto you," Dr. Howard said during my next session. "I know," I replied. "They're making it sound like it's my job to fix this. Like I'm the one who failed to be the bigger person." "How does that make you feel?" she asked. "Angry," I admitted. "But also, validated. They wouldn't fight this hard if they weren't afraid of losing control." The foundation committee met that Friday to finalize our first scholarship recipient. When Maya's name came up, everyone agreed she stood out. Her story was raw and moving. "She reminds me of myself," I said. "Someone who learned to stand tall without a safety net." That night, I rewatched Maya's interview. Her eyes had that same quiet strength I'd once mistaken for weakness. "What if I'm wrong to cut them off completely?" I asked Ryan as we sat on the couch. He turned toward me. "What brought that up?" "Maya. I keep wondering if I'm showing strength or just running away." He shook his head gently. "Boundaries aren't running away. What would you tell Maya if her family treated her like yours treated you?" "That she deserves people who see her worth," I said immediately. "Then you already know the answer," he replied. And I did. The Thursday before Thanksgiving, we hosted dinner at our home. The table stretched across the dining room, glowing under soft candlelight. Naomi sat across from us, Ryan beside me, my business team filling the seats in between. At the far end, Maya smiled shyly, her scholarship certificate framed behind her. Laughter and warmth filled the room, the kind I'd never known growing up. I raised my glass. To those who see us as we truly are. The toast echoed softly, sincere and complete. My phone stayed off the whole night. Later, over dessert, I announced the foundation's next step. We're creating a mentorship program, I said. I'll personally mentor each recipient. Maya's eyes widened. You'll work with us yourself? Every step of the way, I said, smiling. This isn't just about money, it's about building something meaningful together. Naomi nodded proudly. You've built structures no one can interfere with. I nodded. It's legally independent now. The foundation's success won't depend on anyone's approval. Ryan turned on the local news just as the feature about the foundation aired, perfectly timed for my family's traditional dinner hour. On screen, I appeared calm and confident. We build family through action, not obligation, I said in the interview. The report even compared the foundation's transparency to Daniel's failed business ventures. Maya looked at me, wide-eyed. They actually used your brother's company as the bad example? Facts speak louder than excuses, I said, stacking dessert plates. The truth always shows itself. The next morning, my parents asked to meet at a downtown coffee shop. I arrived in the Mercedes, the same one that had sparked their sudden concern months ago. They were already seated. Dad looked older, smaller somehow. He cleared his throat. We should have been there. At the wedding? I asked. He nodded slowly. Everywhere. His voice cracked. All those years. Mom's eyes glistened. How can we fix this? 3 months ago, I would have leapt at the question. Now, I only felt calm. Some things can't be fixed, I said gently. Only accepted. Mom flinched. I'm not closing the door forever, I continued. But if you want contact again, I need accountability. I want you both in therapy. Dad's old edge returned. That's unnecessary. It's non-negotiable. I sipped my tea slowly. If you want to rebuild anything, it starts there. They exchanged uncertain glances. I saw the fear of consequences, the thing they'd never faced before. When we stood to leave, no promises were made. No hugs, no declarations. Just silence. Outside, I watched them walk to their modest sedan, their luxury cars long gone. I took a deep breath and got into my Mercedes. The city stretched out before me, bright and alive. There was work to do, Maya's new project to review, the foundation to guide, the community to uplift. For the first time, I wasn't walking away from something. I was walking toward my own life. A year later, sunlight streamed into the Crescent Foundation's new media studio. Maya adjusted a camera while I stood behind her, watching the way the light hit her subject. What do you think of this angle? She asked. Try shifting a little to the left, I said. Let the light catch the edge of the frame. My voice carried the confidence of a mentor now, not the desperation of a daughter looking for approval. The wall behind her was covered in photos, faces of young women whose lives had changed through the foundation. Each one a reminder that being seen can heal what was once invisible. When Maya finished her film, she called me over to watch. It told the story of 3 generations of women rebuilding strength in their own ways. You're the reason I believe I can do this, she said, hugging me tightly when it ended. Her words filled the space where my parents' love should have been. But this time, it didn't hurt, it healed. That week, I accepted the Community Leadership Award at the Portland Arts Center. The applause felt like peace. Ryan watched from the front row, his smile steady and proud. I ended my speech simply. I used to chase love from people who couldn't give it. Now, I give it through what I build. And as the audience rose to their feet, I knew the circle was complete. Driving home later that night, I passed the same cafe where I'd once edited videos on a borrowed laptop. Through the window, I saw my parents walking down the sidewalk. For a brief second, our eyes met. I didn't stop. There was no bitterness, only quiet understanding. They had taught me what love isn't. Ryan, my work, and my chosen family taught me what it is. Tomorrow, Maya would start her next project. And I'd be there, camera in hand, heart wide open, helping her find her light. Because family isn't who raises you. It's who lifts you.